Hello, guys. My name is Jake, and this is the Footballing Purist. And today I'll be discussing the art of the rebuild. Now, as you guys all know, rebuilds are an important function in sports. And the reason why they're so important is because they generally often a value of commodity to win championships or be a more competitive team for championships. And rebuilds also allow franchises to be able to continue to win championships once a rebuild is complete over a sustained period of time, or compete for championships consistently and increase the chances they're going to win a championship at some point. Everybody's attempt in at least the football, both football and the aspects covered on a channel, is the Premier League, the Champions League, and Super Bowl for any NFL teams. I know they have their own championship games, but teams would rather prefer to win the Super Bowl. That's the creme de la creme of American sports. So, rebuilds don't always go well. And there's always a lot of misconceptions about how rebuilds can be done and what rebuilds are feasible and what rebuilds are extremely unlikely or a dangerous decision to commit to. A perfect example of rebuilds gone wrong is Arsene Wenger's Arsenal. Arsene Wenger's first rebuild of Arsenal was about a 3 to 4 year rebuild. And at the end of the 4 years, Arsenal won 3 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups, one of which went invincible. So, with the first 9 years of your career, you have won 7 trophies and made a European final. How do you expect the rest of the other 11 years to go? 7 to 13 years. How about having a 9-year stretch where you win no trophies, 4 consecutive rebuilds, or rebuild on the fly, as I like to call them, i.e., shortcut rebuilds, watching your neighbors pretty much take over the city and dominate your team across the 2010s. There's a period in the 2010s where Spurs hadn't lost to Arsenal in over 3.5 years. Think about that. They had not lost to Arsenal, Tottenham, in 3.5 years. Barring other cup competitions. Okay. And the thing is, it was kind of like building layers of cake with Arsenal. Because it was just layers and layers. It's like having strawberry cake and having this type of cake. I think meringue cake on top, I think it's called. I'm an expert on cakes, but I think you get the point when I say building cakes on top is not exactly a recipe for success. And Arsenal on the brunt end of that. Building layers on top of layers of a team just leads to an overall dysfunctional process with a team on unstable ground due to the combination of different teams built for different styles of play. It's a mix and match. A mix and match often leads to confusion. Arsenal's confusion was players are built to play different brands of football. Some players were brought to play possession, transition, pure counterattacks, defensive, park the bus. Every style was pretty much used in the Wenger system. And Emery inherited a team that had to manage coaching players of all different shapes and sizes and systems. This ended up in failure. And the team, ultimately, after having to hang on for so many years to be top 4 status, eventually went through a collapse, finally hitting stage 5 on this little charts. You ask why this is important? It kind of reminds me like the South Sea bubble. South Sea had a similar situation where after initial success, the lack of their proper business ventures and the lack of an actual economic rise and success meant South Sea was bound to crash. But South Sea always had replacements in place, bailouts to make sure South Sea bubble could stay afloat. They're essentially introducing Great Britain. South Sea bubble, an idea created by likes of Robert Walpole in order to create a business venture that can make them lots of money without the concept of actually investing in South Sea. That would be the South Seas of the Americas. They had the concept of trying to keep the company afloat, but eventually crashed. And similar to South Sea, Arsenal crashed in 2020 and 2021, with them failing to qualify for Europe for the first time since Arsene Wenger had taken management. A fitting way to describe the failure of Arsene Wenger's second half of his tenure at Arsenal Football Club. And it took the hiring of another manager and a restructure of the team's philosophy and the idea to bring in younger players and create a more overall flexible team to finally bring Arsenal back to the stage of competition and finally bring them to the final end result of the rebuild, where you start to see that players are finally ready to start competing for trophies and increasing their possibility of winning trophies. The NFL is another unique example. But in the NFL, the difference is you get draft picks, so it's a lot easier to induce a rebuild. The perfect example of this scenario is the Kansas City Chiefs. And under general manager John Dorsey, we saw Tyreek Hill, West Alabama, Kareem Hunt, and Travis Kelce from Cincinnati back in 2013. That was over a decade ago. And this was one of his first picks after the disastrous 2012 season, which was a complete opera show in terms of comedy/depression. And John Dorsey and Andy Reid helped steady the ship and build up an organization that was a piece away from winning a Super Bowl. And after a few years of the stopgap Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes took the wheel at Kansas City, and now they're easily the best team in the NFL and the new age dynasty in the league. However, what we must not forget is Patrick Mahomes might have created a new age dynasty, but any QB would have slotted in and succeeded in Andy Reid's system because John Dorsey had built a team so flexible and so ready for success that all it took was plugging in any quarterback. You could have plugged in Johnny Manziel, you could have plugged in Teddy Bridgewater, you could have plugged in Andy Dalton. No one is failing in that Chiefs offense because even Alex Smith probably would have won the Super Bowl with Kansas City. Besides the point, though, Mahomes is taking his team to the next level. That's non-negotiable. This is how you rebuild a team. A team that's failed to conduct such a rebuild in the sense is New Orleans Saints. Now, the issue of the no pass interference call in the 2018-19 NFC Championship game at home versus the Rams killed the Saints' confidence. As the Saints ultimately lost, this kind of sank the Saints. The last 2 years with Drew Brees at quarterback followed a wildcard exit to Minnesota in 2020 and a defeat in the division round of Tampa Bay in 2021, which was Drew Brees' last game in the NFL. So out here plays an all-time certified first ballot Hall of Famer in Drew Brees. Well, you know what we do? We bring in a myriad of quarterbacks like Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, Derek Carr. We consistently let our salary hit the top, near the top of the NFL charts, while consistently putting up mediocre record after mediocre record after mediocre record after mediocre record. Listen, they're essentially constructing a halfway house, with the team that was never competing for a championship, while simultaneously also being a team that was never able to tank and get the best talent in the draft, meaning consistently, it's a halfway house. And this halfway house, listen, a halfway house isn't bad to live in. And I'm not insinuating anything with my previous commentary on the Saints. I'm not saying you're okay to build a halfway house. I'm also not saying you can't. But I have a personal opinion about a halfway house, but I don't feel like I have to state it here. And whether I'd want to live in a halfway house or not. It kind of reminds me of Austria, the Saints. They're just there. There's nothing special. There's nothing bad either, but they're nothing great. Those Saints are. They're just there. which might be more disappointing, is the fact they're just there. They're once successful, but now they're just out here. Like the Austrians in World War II, just out there. Austrians in World War One, just out here. Not a major power. And it's just a general sense of cluelessness that leaves the fan base feeling particularly angry and frustrated at the organization and the levels of incompetence. Another team to hint on is Manchester United. Rebuilds catastrophe, we call it. Manchester United, since 2013, have not had a manager last more than 3 seasons at Manchester United. And we've had 4 major managers in that time. So, I put together United's last squad against Crystal Palace, and I put it out to you. Here, you see 8 players of Erik ten Hag in the lineup, 2 players for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and 1 player Jose Mourinho. On the bench, you see 6 players of Erik ten Hag, 1 player of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that makes it 3 on the team, 1 player of Louis van Gaal, and 1 player of Sir Alex Ferguson. This was Manchester United's entire full team squad for their game away at Crystal Palace, which was a 0-0 draw. 14 as 3 seasons deep into a rebuild, who currently languish in the bottom half of the table after another defeat at home to Tottenham. This is Manchester United. This is how they constructed the rebuild. As you can see, my tone clearly suggests that this is an unacceptable way to conduct a rebuild, and the fact that a rebuild has been allowed to construct like this is a complete embarrassment on the team and the coaching staff as a whole. Therefore, in my opinion, a decision has to be made. Right? But the scary thing is a decision will not be made, and this team is allowed to continue this way. Which is sad because this team doesn't have to look like this, but this is how teams screw up rebuilds all the time, by building on top of teams of previous, and you end up not having a fully cohesive team bought into the same ideology or principle. And that's the results you can potentially have. A rebuild's kind of like a bit like a cookie cutter box. You kind of have to do things pretty precisely and accurately, and using blunt or poor tools from a previous rebuild is never the key to success. You always have to start afresh when you're doing a rebuild for me. And while teams have been able to rebuild on the fly, the importance of being able to conduct a proper and successful rebuild calmly without any rush or precarious positioning makes franchise especially dangerous. Rebuilds are hard work. No one's saying they're not. Rebuilds are hard work. But rebuilds can give you great rewards if they succeed. But rebuilds like this and like a halfway house can give you pretty devastating consequences, bar they are to fail. Like death. Rebuilds can fail, and failing rebuild is the most gut-punching thing in the world. Please take this easy, guys. For any of you future coaches out there, rebuilds are long term. Anyway, please subscribe. My name is Jake. This has been the Football Empirist, and peace out.